It is Sunday evening. We are fresh off of college football week 9, looking directly into college football week 10. Cannot believe we're, this far into the college football season already. It goes by way too quick. But nonetheless, we are here. We're in the heat of conference play. This is where bids become real for conference championships. And we have a much more exciting week of college football this week, in my opinion, than last week. So it's always fun every week, but we got a little bit more spice in the games on the slate this week. Before we dive in, Matt, how we doing, man?
Doing good. Coming off another successful weekend of betting college football. A couple surprises, but nonetheless, it went right along the lines of what I thought would happen.
Yeah, we had a solid week last week, coming off our last show. 6-3 on my personal book. The model projections went 17-12 this week, so I'm always happy with a 59% return yet again. So, going to skip the review part. I want to take full advantage of Matt's time. Matt is a NCAA insider betting analyst, so glad to have him back on. Matt, again, we appreciate you being here. Jumping headfirst into the slate, LSU goes to Alabama. Alabama's favored by 4.5 on some books, but we also see it priced up to 7.5 at places like BetMGM. A lot of discrepancy in this line, a lot of gray area here. So LSU 4-1 in SEC play. Their only loss is to Ole Miss. The Tigers rank number 1 in college football with 47.4 points per game. On the flip side, Alabama is 5-0 in conference play, and they sit number 1 in the SEC West. Alabama is 16th nationally in scoring defense, allowing 16.5 points per game. So looking at these lines, seeing the discrepancy a little bit, the point total is 58.5. Not much of a surprise there, but, snap reaction to this line, man. What do you think? Let me hear it.
I made this number 6 in favor of Alabama. I took the 3.5. I just think Alabama is playing really good ball right now. And Nick Saban, he is the king of college football. And until he gets dethroned, you could argue Kirby Smart is right there with him. But, man, he's done a great job with this coach, with the players he's got and coaching them up and playing. Jalen Milroe's looking like a formidable quarterback now, who earlier in the season, I think he didn't look very impressive. That being said, LSU's got a pretty good quarterback too, and Jaden Daniels, he's continuing his race for the Heisman. And I think they would need a really big win for him to have a shot at winning it, but I don't think they're going to get it down in Tuscaloosa. I think Bama is just going to be too powerful. They'll be able to control the tempo of the game, and as we've seen in games past, LSU doesn't have the defense to keep Alabama off the scoreboard. So give me Nick Saban, the field goal on the hook.
Yeah, it's funny because in the past decade, 2 decades, just about, every time we approach this game, it's typically more often than not a defensive bout. And unfortunately, that's just not going to be the case in this game, especially on LSU's side. Like you mentioned, LSU, their defense is atrocious. It's one of the worst that we've seen out of LSU in forever, just about. We look at some of their ratings and their underlying metrics, and it's pretty bad. 82nd overall success rate on the defensive side of the ball for the LSU defense. They are 117th in FBS in allowing explosive plays, and that's bad. We've never seen that out of an LSU team, in my memory, and watching college football. So that particularly comes from the passing game. Their secondary is leaky. It couldn't stop anybody. So that kind of bodes well for Alabama and Jalen Milroe, who's finally kind of hitting his stride as a passer. We always knew he could run the ball, but as a passer, we're seeing him develop into somebody who can actually hit the deep ball and hit his guys in stride and on the run. So, man, I'm with you. You said you got 3.5. I see it at 4.5. I wish I got it at 3.5. But I'm all on board with Alabama 4.5 at home. And I think I kind of like the under as a sneaky play. If we see something similar to how Bama played the Vols, the LSU could get in the game early and get some points early. But, again, the Tide, they'll have it on defense. They'll have it on offense. We've seen Nick Saban, one of the best in the game at making adjustments. So I think LSU controls this game in the second half at home, and I think they win by 7. So I like where your head's at. I wish I got that 3.5 though. I wish I was a little bit quicker to the punch.
Yeah, that was just price shopping between two books here in Arkansas. Just such a discrepancy. One had 3.5, one had 6. So I just jumped on it.
Yeah. I'm very interested to see where this line goes because it looks like some early movement and Action Network shows that some people might be laying into LSU. So we'll see. It's about a 60-40 split right now in favor of LSU. I don't expect it to do much, but I think it's it's pretty telling that the books don't really know what exactly is going on or what to expect in this game. So it should be a fun one nonetheless. The Alabama LSU rivalry has never let us down in the
Yeah.
past, but definitely looking forward to it. That's my number one watch list game of this upcoming Saturday. Staying in the SEC, but moving over to the SEC East, a surprising Missouri team goes to Georgia. Georgia just routed Florida. I think we were talking about it before we started recording here. Georgia shows up. When it matters, they show up and they show out. They can sleepwalk through the rest of their schedule and kind of let everybody else in. But when the game is on the line, when the season's on the line, they always show up and show out. That's just what Kirby Smart does. At 8-0 overall and 5-0 in the SEC, Georgia is alone at the top of the SEC East, but Missouri is breathing down their neck. They do have that one loss to LSU from earlier in the season, but right now they're 3-1 in the SEC, 7-1 overall. Again, surprising Mizzou team. Eli Drinkwitz has done a lot of great stuff. They have a really good offense, and Brady Cook is cooking at quarterback. Right now, this line, Georgia is favored by 16, 17.5 on some books like FanDuel. Total sitting at 57.5. What's your snap reaction to this line? Let me hear it.
I wanted to take Mizzou plus the points. I looked at my power ratings, updated them for this show, and my line's 14.5. It's there. I think it's playable if you can get it up to 17. I think Missouri will be able to put up points. I kind of like the over, but I haven't bet anything yet. If I do, I want Missouri plus 17, 17.5, and then I like that total around 56. So it's close to my number, but at this point, I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah,
It will not.
this
I will say this: it will not surprise me if the public hammers Georgia just for the fact that they're going to have recency bias and think, oh well, they just dominated Florida. So I would think that they've got it clicking right now, and Missouri's got a much better offense than what Florida's got.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this one was tough for me because we did see what Georgia did to Florida, and again, I think you're absolutely right. I'm seeing some public movement on Georgia as we speak, and I think that's why some books are playing it safe and playing it all the way up to 17.5. Now, if for me, if Missouri was playing this game at home, I think I'd be absolutely fine taking 17.5.
Yeah.
But again, at home in games where Georgia needs to get up and going, I think we see Georgia bring it to Missouri. And, I'm going to see and wait and see kind of what this line does. But, I might take that 16.5 a little bit first to play it safe and then play it from there because, man, this Georgia team, again, you said it before the show, their defense is underrated. I didn't even think that was possible. Georgia's known for their defense, but a defense coming in underrated. I know it's at Georgia, so it'll be a tough time for Mizzou to get home. I see maybe a backdoor cover, but it's just hard for me to believe that this Missouri team that gave up so many points to that LSU team earlier in the season and gave up that loss to LSU earlier in the season will be able to, contain Georgia and will also be able to produce offensively against one of the best defenses in the league. They're not the Georgia defense that they had 2 years ago, but still across the board, they're top 25 in nearly every metric. And you look at it, 12th overall in the nation in overall defensive success rate for Georgia, 11th overall in passing success rate allowed, 30th overall in rushing success rate allowed. So, there's a little bit of margin there, but still, it's not like they're sitting there bottom of the league. They're great across the board. They're all green across the board. You flip that on the Missouri side. They're the same way. They have a lot of good metrics on offense and defensive side of the ball, but one thing is true. Missouri, they lack a running game. So they're going to have to air it out against this Georgia defense. They may be able to land home some explosive plays in the backfield, but they can't rely on that the whole game. I don't think that can get them home. And Missouri, as good as they have been on defense, they also allow a lot of explosive plays as well. 94th overall in FBS and explosive plays allowed, and that comes from the running game. They do well in limiting explosive plays in the passing game, but it's the rushing game is what really gets to them. 85th overall in FBS and rushing explosive plays allowed. So I think Georgia's going to milk this game out. They're kind of just play big on big and, grind it out. And I think Georgia ends up, it's going to be an ugly cover. I really feel it's not going to feel like they cover by 17 points, but it's going to be like a 30-10 type game,
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And going back, I mean, don't forget Georgia, they're 2-6 against the spread. Yeah, they're 8-0, but I feel like if it's not a big name matchup, they don't really get up for it. They sleptwalk through Vanderbilt, South Carolina. They didn't even look good against Auburn, who's going through a complete rebuild right now with Hugh Freeze. But I don't know. Do you get up for a Missouri Tigers game at home? And is this an 11 a.m. kickoff? I haven't even looked that far, but 2:30. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a CBS game again.
I don't know. I think it's a coin flip at 17.
Yeah, I know. It's tough because the last thing I want is for Missouri to come in there all hype, and make a run for their money. But again, this, as crazy as it sounds, this is for the SEC East just about. And so, and and again in that game of that degree, of that stature, I give the bid to Kirby just because it's what he does.
Yeah. He's definitely the better coach.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what the projections have to say. Again, if you don't follow our Twitter account, you can follow our Twitter account, find all of our college football and NFL projections there. That's where you can find that information. We post them later in the week ahead of Saturday and Sunday. So find that somewhere up here at Statletics_. Moving on to the Big 12. Kansas State goes to Texas. Texas is 5.5-point home favorites. Texas Longhorns are 7-1, and they host the 6-2 Kansas State Wildcats. Texas against the spread, they're 4-4 this year. Kansas State, they're 6-2 against the spread. So two solid teams. ATS. Texas, in 2 of the 8 games that they have played, the over has hit. Of 8 Kansas State games so far this year, 4 games have gone over the total. So some interesting betting trends there. Now, this is going to be a fun one because lately we've seen Kansas State absolutely rout some teams. They killed TCU. They murdered Houston. And now they're coming into Texas with all of this momentum. To Texas, again, they've kind of kept steady. They've done well. They beat BYU this past week. So I think, snap reaction, Texas 5.5. I want to give it to Texas, but man, this Kansas State team has only gotten better week in and week out. Texas 5.5. What's your snap reaction to this line?
Is Quinn Ewers still going to be out for this?
Yeah, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks.
Okay, that's what I thought. But Malik Murphy played pretty well. He didn't really have to do much, though. Texas's defense really stepped up and shut down BYU early. I don't know. I want to bet Kansas State because I love them as a dog. I feel like they're more profitable than not when you bet on them. That one loss to Oklahoma State was kind of ugly, but now Oklahoma State looks like they may be a decent team after all. I'll probably end up getting on it. I want no part in trying to back Texas minus the 5.5. So I guess give me Kansas State +5.
Okay. Yeah, this one I've seen a little bit of movement too, just because not having Quinn Ewers, having Malik Murphy back there, it injects a little bit more variance into what to expect, and so we're seeing it 6.5 on some books, 5.5 on some. So I would be on Kansas State, but I think at home, I know Texas. They lost that game to OU. They've lost their quarterback, and this will be a fun one because I'm gonna, as much as I don't want to, I'm gonna stick with Texas and the 5 points at home. I think their defense will keep them in this game more than anything, and I think that with OU losing that game yesterday, it's kind of like uh, a renewed motivation, to keep going. So I fully expect them to throw the kitchen sink in this game with Quinn Ewers out and Steve Sarkisian to get deep in his bag with some creativity. So um, not having Quinn Ewers definitely worries me. I think he is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in college football, but I still think Sark can get it done uh, against this K State team, and I'm scared saying that because we've seen what Kansas State has done to these teams, but I think TCU is not the team everybody expected, and I think that Houston is just they're they've been gross. I think that's the
Yeah.
nicest way I can put it.
Yeah, I mean they allow some points against okay offenses. UCF put up 31 on them. Oklahoma State beat them with 29. Texas Tech 21. I mean I don't know. They're 6-2 against the spread. That's pretty good. I'm going to go back and track it in games that they're a dog. I think they've covered in each of them, but I don't know. Wildcats maybe. It's 11 a.m. kickoff. A little complacency maybe with Texas just going through the motions now. The pressure's off because
True.
Oklahoma looks like they're going to give up the Big 12. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I dog or pass for me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because every Big 12 game that involves Texas or Oklahoma, I I can't I can't help but look at it of like this is this team's last stab at Texas or last stab at Oklahoma because it's their last year in the Big 12. So I feel like it's a like these teams have a vendetta against Texas and a vendetta against OU, and so I think there's like a little bit of extra motivation. So that's it always keeps me from confidently taking a pick on either Texas or OU, and we saw that last week. First time that Kansas has beaten OU in 19 tries, which is crazy, but it's fun, part of
Yeah,
it.
it is fun.
All right, moving over to the Pac 12, Washington goes to USC. Both of these teams played in absolute thrillers this past Saturday. Washington barely scraped by Stanford, which was surprising. And then USC barely scraped by California. They actually got lucky. California went for two and they didn't get it. So, some scares last week. USC has definitely not lived up to the hype. There's a good chance that they actually finish 7-5, give or take a few games there. And Washington, they're having a great season. They're still going strong, but a scare like that to Stanford is not the most confidence boosting game to come out of. But again, Pac-12 college football is college football, and a win's a win, ugly or not. So going into this game, USC is 2-7 against the spread. Washington is 3-4-1 against the spread. USC has played 9 games this season, and 8 of them have hit the over. So USC, I feel like, is a given for the over just about. Now, on the flip side, there have been 4 Washington games out of 8 that have gone over the total this year. So about a 50% rate with Washington games this year. The line right now is USC is +4, +3 home underdogs. The total is a full 71.5. So lofty total as expected. I'm kind of surprised that USC is not, 7-point underdogs. I would have expected something a little bit higher just due to recent performance, but maybe they're, seeing something either in their models or, they're putting a little bit of weight to that Washington game against Stanford last week. Snap reaction to this line, man. What do you think?
It was right at what I would have made it. I have USC +5 right now, and I'd updated Washington's, but I don't know. I'm not buying into Washington being that legitimate. I absolutely hate it for Oregon that they lost that game because I think Oregon would beat them 9 times out of 10. And unfortunately for Dan Lanning, missing opportunities to kick field goals, they lost it. But
Mm-hmm.
Washington's looked bad now, what, in the last 2 weeks? They've played close games. Obviously, the Stanford game this past weekend, but there was another game that, oh, Arizona State. They only won 15-7. Penix didn't throw a passing touchdown. And this was the leader. He was like the heavy favorite to win the Heisman, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just pump the brakes on Washington. They may be a really good team. That's fine, but they're going to be tested against USC's offense. I think outside of Oregon, this is going to be the toughest offense that they've faced. The question mark for me is how serious is USC going to take this, knowing that they've probably missed out on their shot to compete for the Pac-12 championship, go to the college football playoff. Those those days are gone. I mean, you start the season with a lot of hype around could Caleb Williams win another Heisman, and now you've got people talking about, well, should he just sit out for the rest of the season? Because is it really worth it? I think if
Yeah.
USC shows up, they're going to win this game outright. If the defense can slow down Penix, I think Caleb Williams comes out in front of the home crowd and has a really good performance for the simple fact that the quarterback on the other side he's competing against, he doesn't want to let that shine get away from him, and he wants to show those NFL scouts that he's the real deal.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That. I mean, this is going to be a fun one. I don't. A point total that high. I definitely think it can go over, but I would not be comfortable touching it. Again, as we know, both of these offenses are electric. I think I mean, obviously USC gets the nod because of Caleb Williams and because of Lincoln Riley. Um, it's the defense that is of concern, and with that spot, it's good because it's good for USC in the sense that Washington doesn't have a great defense either. It's not like they're like Oregon, on which again I'm surprised that Oregon actually dropped that game. They're the only team in FBS that is top 10 in offensive EPA per play, and they're top 10 in defensive EPA per play. So um, again, I'm with you. I think Oregon is definitely atop the Pac-12 in terms of power rating. I definitely don't think Washington is the better team. I know they stole a win from Oregon at home in Washington, so but I would take Oregon any other day of the week, 9 times out of 10. Um, USC definitely has a better offense, I think. Better quarterback for sure, better play calling, absolutely, out of Lincoln Riley. The only thing that concerns me is, kind of the intangibles and the abstract element of this game. I get some weird vibes out of Lincoln Riley. It kind of seems like he has his eyes elsewhere. I don't know if you get that same feeling. It feels like
Yeah.
he may be a little interested. He's got kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, maybe eyeing down the NFL. I can't say that with any certainty, and I certainly have no sources I can point to. But it, something's weird. Something's a bit off. But I think if USC can come in there and limit the mistakes, it's kind of been surprising because they've put themselves in a bad position in games in the past due to mistakes. Notre Dame, Caleb Williams had 3 picks. He was trying to do too much. He threw 3 picks, and that's why they lost. Now, again, that's also due to the horrible defense. But I think if they don't make those mistakes, if he doesn't throw those 3 picks, they're actually still in the game, regardless of how bad the defense is. So with a guy like Caleb Williams throwing the football and slinging the thing, they're always going to be in the game. Offense, very much similar across the board for both teams. Defense is a little bit hazy. Again, Washington, they by no means have a top performing defense, but they do a few things well. And one of those things being they limit the explosive plays in the passing game. But man, they give it up big on the ground. So The key to success here might actually be the running game for USC. We're looking at it. Washington is 125th in FBS and overall rushing success rate allowed. So pretty bad. There's only there's like 7 teams under you at that ranking,
Yeah.
133. Yeah. But yeah, so pretty bad there, pretty bad at power success. And then overall defensive success rate is actually worse for Washington than it is for USC. So, um, it's weird because I see money pouring in on Washington. Everybody wants a piece of Washington right now just because
Yeah,
of,
because
I guess,
USC
the
looks
way that,
so bad. I mean,
yeah.
going wire to wire, which, Arizona looks good now, but so it kind of lessens I guess, the dramatics of, oh, Arizona almost beat him and it took overtimes. But it's all recency bias. You look at it, and I think Caleb Williams has that, like, don't forget about me game. And I think it happens against Washington. But I've been wrong before. I've backed USC several times this season and they've lost. But I'll keep
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I will do it this game. Now, last week and the week before that, I picked Notre Dame to beat them, so I was happy with that. I didn't touch last week's game. I had no idea what to expect out of that one. But, I did get burnt on Utah. So I regret doing that. But I am back on USC this week because, again, you know, going back to the more abstract element of the game, Caleb Williams has a lot to prove. I think he's kind of hearing some whispers of like, oh, maybe he's not worth it. Maybe he's not this. And he's talked a big game. He's even gone as far as to requesting that whatever team that drafts him, he wants like
Yeah.
ownership, like part ownership. So you can't say that stuff without going out there and backing it up. And I think USC +3 at home, +4 on some books is, I think that's some good value. I think they win this one outright, and I think they kind of reestablish themselves as top dog, one of the top dogs in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'll qualify by saying this. It's not going to surprise me if USC wins 58-59 in triple overtime, and it's not going to surprise me if Washington wins 50-20 either. Like it's either going to be they're going to show up and they're going to go back and forth, or USC's just going to get the door slammed in their face, kind of like the Notre Dame game. I mean, it was like, all right, yeah, your defense cannot stop us. We're going to do what we want, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to stop you.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree, and that's the beauty of the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Feels like that with every game. uh, All right, we're going to shift back to the SEC, specifically the SEC West. Texas A&M goes to Ole Miss. Ole Miss won against Vandy last week. Yesterday. Nothing special in that game. Texas A&M beat South Carolina. Again, nothing really special. They should have won. They were favored. I think they missed the cover by 1 point. I think they won by 13. Should have covered, but oh well. Going into this game, Ole Miss is 5-2 against the spread this season so far. 2 of 7 Ole Miss games have hit the over. Against the spread, Texas A&M is 4-4, and out of the 8 games that they have played this year, 4 of Texas A&M games have gone over. So again, even split right there for A&M. This is going to be a fun one. There's a little bit more implications for Ole Miss than there really is for Texas A&M. Texas A&M is kind of out of the fight for the SEC West, but Ole Miss is very, very much in the race, and so this is a big one. And Ole Miss needs to win this game to stay in the mix. So Ole Miss, they're 3.5-point home favorites. 4 on some books. The point total is 56.5. Bit lower than I expected, but again, I didn't expect it to be anywhere outside of the 50s. So snap reaction to this line, man. Let me know what you think.
I like this Ole Miss team, and I've got a buddy that's a big Ole Miss fan. And at the beginning of the season, he was like, "Yeah, I'm not really high on Ole Miss this year. They're not going to be very good." Lo and behold, like you said, they're competing for the SEC West. And Lane Kiffin, I feel like him and Jimbo Fisher, and this may be totally made up, but I feel like they hate each other. And I feel like Ole Miss being at home, he's going to try to outscore him. You've got Bobby Petrino over there with A&M too, all these offensive minds. I just think Ole Miss is playing so much better. Jackson Dart looks very impressive. Max Johnson for A&M is just okay. I feel like this Ole Miss the defense isn't very good, but I don't think A&M's offense is world beaters either. I don't think they're going to be able to put up enough points. So give me Ole Miss at home, -4.5 at my book.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning too. And you said it perfectly. Texas A&M's offense is just okay, and that kind of shows in the numbers here too. Texas A&M, they're 68 overall in FBS and overall offensive success rate. Kind of across the board, they're just middle of the road. Passing success rate, they're 59th overall in FBS. Rushing success rate, 72nd. Again, perfectly said, middle of the road. There's no other way to put it. They're not good, they're not bad, but just right there. Ole Miss, on the other hand, really solid in the offensive realm. Not as good as some of the offenses in the past that Lane Kiffin has had, but again, great nonetheless, and really good at the explosive plays. They generate these explosive plays and they build up throughout the game, specifically in the pass game. They have a solid rushing game, but their explosiveness is really out of the passing game. And what I've seen is that it's really in the screen game as well. They throw it over to Quinshon Judkins and he just takes it for 30 yards. So I think that's where those metrics are, what's kind of underlying there, because passing explosiveness rating, Ole Miss is 12th in FBS. So, you don't really see the deep ball that much, but you do see them throwing horizontally, and then one of their guys will take it for 50. So, again, really explosive offense. Their defense is not great, but it's a lot better than what Ole Miss units have had in the past. 41st overall in FBS and overall defensive success rate. Pretty solid at stopping the run, 47th overall in rushing success rate. So, Texas A&M were really good at stopping the run, but they give up a lot in the secondary. One of the league worst in giving up explosive plays in the passing game, 131st to be specific. So we saw this. I remember this is the exact breakdown I gave for the Tennessee game. They will stifle you in the run game, but you can shred them in the passing game. And I think that's what Ole Miss does. And I also think Ole Miss has one of those rushing attacks that is not defense proof, but damn near close to it. So Ole Miss 3.5 at home and 3 on some books. I don't expect this number to steam down, but I do like the 3.5. And if I could get it at 3, maybe buy a little points just for safe measure. I think there's too much on the line for this game for Ole Miss to drop it. I think Ole Miss is going to really throw everything they can at this Texas A&M team, and I think Texas A&M is kind of just demoralized at this point. I think they're lacking any sort of motivation. They're lacking any sort of spark, and they're just riding dull at this moment. So I'll take Lane Kiffin at home, 3.5 points to keep in the SEC West race.
Yep, I agree.
Now,
got a big one coming up too against Georgia.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to have a look ahead spot because you end the season with Mississippi State and you get UL Monroe tossed in there. So Ole Miss wins this one. I mean, they're looking at a 10-2 season and a chance to compete for the SEC West.
Yeah.
So just take care of business.
Yeah, this will it'll be a fun one. I'm excited to see how. I'm glad because I don't think the SEC West, or I don't think the SEC period will be settled, first week of November like it usually is. Typically within the next week or two, we would know, what the conference champions or championship is going to shake out to be. But, I think it's going to come down to the last week. So it's going to be awesome. Shifting over to the Big 12. Oklahoma goes to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State out of nowhere. Mike Gundy does it again. They're well on their way to 9-3, potentially 10-2. Oklahoma did drop a game last week to Kansas too. They're not out of the race by any means, but it certainly they shot themselves in the foot with that loss to Kansas last week. This is a big one too because this is the last time this rivalry will happen in the Big 12. So, a lot on the line here, a lot of implications for both of these teams, maybe for different reasons, but nonetheless, it's going to be a fun one. Oklahoma has covered the spread 6 times in their past 8 games. Out of 8 Oklahoma games so far this season, 5 have hit the over. Oklahoma State has beaten the spread 5 times in 7 games this year. And right now, as it stands, 4 of Oklahoma State's 7 games have hit the over. So both have a positive hit rate for over unders. Pretty solid against the spread. Snap reaction, Oklahoma State, 6.5 home underdogs to OU. Let me know how you feel about this line.
I think Oklahoma probably gets right here. I mean, you look at Oklahoma State, who have they beaten on this rebound? I mean, I completely wrote them off, but it's Mike Gundy, so I shouldn't have. Cincinnati, West Virginia, Kansas, 39-32. Kansas State, probably their most impressive win, 29-21. They give up points, they do enough, but I think Oklahoma is the better team, and I think Oklahoma was better than Kansas. They just didn't play. They let way too many opportunities get by. Uh, they had Kansas pinned up and just kept giving them opportunities to score and get right back in the game. So I haven't bet it. I'm probably going to bet Oklahoma, though, anything south of a touchdown. I just think they've got to realize we're still in this Big 12 race. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't slip up again.
Yeah, no, you can't. It's a do or die for Oklahoma now. They don't have that cushion anymore that they did have last week, and that's a good point. I don't really think Kansas really beat Oklahoma as much as Oklahoma beat themselves, and it was crazy because I think we saw a bit of coaching malpractice by Brent Venables at the end of that Kansas game. I think there were a lot of decisions that I think he would go back and make differently if he had the chance, specifically using his timeouts in the right moment. So again, I think all of that damage was done. I mean, credit to Kansas. They played a great game. They deserved that win. They balled out, especially doing what they have done with the roster that they had with their backup quarterback. Nonetheless, it's extremely impressive. I don't want to take away from Kansas and what they did, but again, we can point to Oklahoma and point out all the things they did wrong, and if they do differently, I think they definitely win that game. So don't want to take
Yeah,
away from Kansas here.
I can't wait to see Parker Fleming puts out those. Did we really get beat that bad? The net success rates, whenever those ones that are inverted, where like your team played well enough where they should have won and they didn't. Sad thing is, Arkansas has been on that more often than not. But I would almost bet Oklahoma is going to be the overperforming team. Kansas is going to be on the negative end. That ended up winning the game. So I think you dive into the stats a little bit deeper than, well, Kansas won the game, so they're the better team. At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, I think you play that again, and I know I said it earlier, 9 times out of 10, Oklahoma probably wins that game.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it didn't happen.
right. No, yeah, 100% agree. And I love looking at those too, especially trying to see where Tennessee ends up. It doesn't make me feel any better, but
Yeah.
it's always nice. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think Oklahoma in this game, they have a lot to prove. They need to get back on track to stay in the race. Luckily the Big 12 takes top two. It's not done by division, so they're still healthily in the mix, barring this upcoming game. Looking at the ratings, man, Oklahoma's a better team. No ifs, ands, or buts. I think where Oklahoma State gets the bid is that it's a home game for them. It is at their place. They do have the momentum right now, but man, Oklahoma has the better offense. They have the better defense. It's really just hard for me to fully rely on, vibes and momentum to take a bet on Oklahoma State because looking at this game in a vacuum, if I didn't know what I knew about last week, I would absolutely be taking Oklahoma -6. And I'm gonna like trust the numbers over trusting my gut right here. Oklahoma 6th overall in overall offensive success rate in the nation, 3rd overall in passing success rate, 17th in FBS and rushing success rate. Oklahoma State sits at 66th in overall offensive success rate, and then similar numbers there for the rushing and passing success rate as well. And if you hop onto the defensive side of the ball, Oklahoma has a top 20 defense. 19th overall in overall defensive success rate, 22nd in rushing success rate, 124th in passing success rate. They do give up some explosive plays, pretty in typical Oklahoma fashion, but nonetheless, they're more consistent than not on the defensive side of the ball. I'm taking Brent Venables in a bounce back spot and the veteran QB and Dylan Gabriel to get this team back on track. And I think they come out and running and gunning. So,
Yeah,
I
I think
want to take Oklahoma State.
you hit the nail on the head when you were talking about looking at it in a vacuum. And that's why I love doing this with you, because one, our eyes see one game, analytics
Mm-hmm.
see every game. So let's not discredit, you can't throw away 7 games because the eighth
Mm-hmm.
game had a result that wasn't favorable for your team. And
Right.
when you look at it like you just did, Oklahoma is the better team far and away. So
Mm-hmm.
had they beaten Kansas, is this line not closer to 10, 11?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
would you be surprised? I wouldn't. So
Nope.
I think you're right. I think you've just kind of confirmed that Oklahoma is the right side there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, I'm gonna trust the system here and ride with the numbers and what they tell me. I really do think that Brent Venables will get this team right. And there's still they have so much skin in the game at this point. It's not like their season's over by any means. They still are absolutely in the hunt. And you look at the rest of the landscape of not only the Big 12, but uh, the entire college football landscape. There's not going to be, maybe Georgia's undefeated. Michigan may be undefeated. One of Ohio State or them may be undefeated. But outside of that, it's chaos. So everybody's got a fighting chance it's up there in the top 10. So that'll be a fun one. I'm excited to see that one for sure. It's crappy.
I want to say one thing real quick because I update my own power ratings every week, and I do every matchup side by side and
Mm-hmm.
figure out where the differential is and what my number is versus what the consensus line is. And earlier, like the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, I would get like 6, 7, 8 point differentials. I'm going through with these 10 that we're going to cover today, and the largest
Mm-hmm.
one is 3. So I think the lines are getting a
Yeah.
lot sharper than what they were in the beginning of the season, which may explain why, I had a lot more success early on versus lately, it's been better. But there in like week 6, 7, I hit a little lull that it wasn't too profitable. But it just hits home the fact that if you just keep working your system and stick with the numbers and the analytics, you're going to come out more profitable than just trying to go off what you saw last week.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. There's always those outliers. So just got to stick true to it. Jumping over, UCLA goes to Arizona. Arizona, impressive win against Oregon State last week at home. UCLA, they beat Colorado last week and kind of a grinder, and then you had a great call. UCLA hit the under easily in that Colorado game. So good call over there. UCLA goes to Arizona. Arizona is 1.5 point home underdogs in this game. Snap reaction to this game. Let me know.
You remember like 30 seconds ago when I said don't rely on one game last week. How can you not? Arizona looks like a very good team.
Yeah.
Now, can they repeat that performance? Possibly. We'll see. I don't know. I like this Arizona team. I would have liked to have at least gotten a field goal. I don't know really what to make of UCLA's win over Colorado. Colorado played them pretty closely, and I think given Shiloh Sanders getting ejected was a big deal for a bullcrap targeting call, by the way. But UCLA is not very good, and the fact that they're 6-2, golf clap, congratulations. I think Arizona is a better team. Now,
Mm-hmm.
is there an opportunity for them to fall flat after a big win where the fans rush the field? Maybe, but Dante Moore, I would say DJU is better. Their defense is 50-50, Oregon State and UCLA's. I'm going to go with Arizona, I think, but I haven't bet it yet. I'm going to wait, just kind of see. Um, But yeah, I think Arizona's just a better team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I stand with you too. And it's crazy because in recent memory, we just look at UCLA and we're like, only offense, and their offense, and they have, again, they have Chip Kelly, so we'd expect that, but it's not great. You could argue to me that Texas A&M's offense is better, and I'd believe you. Especially looking at the numbers, UCLA is 65th overall in overall offensive success rate, and their passing success rate is awful. 87th overall. The only reason that it's better than that is because they have Carson Steele running the ball. Their rushing success rate is 43rd overall in FBS. So their passing attack is just not there, straight up. But Arizona, on the flip side, their offense is really, really solid. I was actually surprised. I did not expect this out of this team whatsoever. But passing success rate for Arizona, 14th overall in FBS right now. They lack the explosive plays. They don't really rip off those big passes or those big runs, but they're extremely consistent, especially in the passing game. They find a lot of success in the air and on the ground. But we flip it over on the defensive side of the ball. The only concern is Arizona. They have a middle of the road defense, 76th overall in FBS and defensive success rate. They do a good job of limiting the explosive plays, and I think that's what UCLA is going to need, quite frankly, with the low passing attack that they have. This game's going to be a grind. Truthfully, I think, not really touching this game total, but I think it very well in reason to hit UCLA's defense. As we know from last week, we talked about this on the show as well. They're really solid, a lot better than what people ever would expect. So that's the only area of concern for Arizona in this game. UCLA 27th overall defensive success rate, 11th at limiting explosive plays, 31st overall in rushing success rate allowed, 28th overall in passing success rate allowed. So Arizona is going to have to get in their bag, but they can do it. I think Arizona should actually be favored by one here instead of underdogs. I think the UCLA name brand, the Chip Kelly brand, is what's giving UCLA the bid right here. I'm very curious to see what the projections have to say, but I am very well guess I'm going to take a educated hypothesis that Arizona is going to be the favor in the projections upcoming. So I'm with you, man. I like Arizona at home, especially with the points.
Yeah, that was one of my 3 point differential. I've made Arizona -1.5, and my consensus line here is +1.5. So I should have grabbed the
Mm-hmm.
two when I had the chance, but I hadn't bet it yet. I guess I'm gonna hop on it real quick.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna take this one as soon as I log off. Now that wraps it up for the big game breakdowns. But I had one more line I wanted to briefly ask you about. I don't have any sort of stats or lines here, but I got to talk about this team just because of how weird it is the season that they've had. Notre Dame goes to Clemson. Clemson's 3.5, 2.5, give or take, home underdogs against Notre Dame. I wanted to hit the Notre Dame 2.5 so bad, but I knew we had the show tonight, so I wanted to talk about this, ad hoc. What do you think? What's your snap reaction to that line?
Dude, I hit Notre Dame money line -160. I thought that was pretty cheap to lay. I made
Yeah.
this I made this number Notre Dame -6.5. So I'm pretty surprised that the spread's that low. I don't think Clemson's very good. They're 4-4.
Hmm.
Dabo has pretty much stood up against, the NIL, and he's just lost players. What do they have to play for? Why would they show up to beat a Notre Dame team who I still think, the college football playoff hope is probably dead, but they showed up to beat USC. They're going to show up to beat Clemson. I mean, that I just, yeah, give me Sam Hartman. This is Notre Dame's game to win and to finally put to
Yeah.
bed. Is Clemson good? No, they're not. They're going to be 4-5 after this weekend.
Oh, yeah. That brings joy to my ears because I wanted to lay that as soon as I saw it, and I'm definitely going to now. Now that we've had this conversation, Notre Dame -2.5, and I like the money line pick, especially to throw in some parlays potentially. But there's a good chance that Clemson doesn't even make a bowl. They have Notre Dame next, then Georgia Tech, who just beat North Carolina. And they have North Carolina, who's still a good football team. And then they play South Carolina, which we always know that game is going to be crazy. So it's not out of the range of possibilities for Clemson to go 5-7 this year and completely miss a bowl, which is
Yeah.
wild. But
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's
Clemson's game to win was the Florida State game, and they were close, but they blew it. And I think after that, Dabo probably lost the locker room a little bit. They walked past Syracuse
yeah.
and barely beat Wake Forest. Neither of those teams are very good. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen that in the last couple weeks. But you lose to Miami, you lose to NC State. Now, what do you have to play for? Like this team, eh, when Cade Klubnik is supposed to hand the ball off and he keeps it and runs, and Dabo in the press conference throws him under the bus and says that that's not what he was supposed to do. I mean,
No.
that is a recipe for a bad locker room, and I think that's what you've got. And then you insert Sam Hartman, a very experienced quarterback who can win on the road, and Estime, who's one of the best running backs in the country, and a Notre Dame team that still has a lot to play for. In the grand scheme of things, I just think Notre Dame. It won't surprise me if Notre Dame wins by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. That one, I couldn't believe it, but I'll take what they give me. So, all right, man. Hey, that wraps it up for big game breakdowns. You got anything else you want to drop for us? So that wraps up for you too.
So one more, and it's going to be ugly. Just if you bet it, just don't even watch it. Northwestern and Iowa. I made Iowa an 11-point favorite, and it's only 3.5. So take the Hawkeyes and that abysmal offense. I don't think Northwestern's going to be able to put up any points. It's a low total games. Take the short favorite. They just seem like the right side.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if that game ended up being 10-0 when it's all said and done.
Just ugly dogfight.
All right, man. Hey, well, that wraps it up for this week, College Football Week 10. Matt, we appreciate you joining us here at Statletics. Guys, we appreciate you watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Here, we will see you guys here next week.